Hello everyone. I know it's been a while since my last actual video where I've spoke to you directly, but hello, it's me, Noah Animations, and as you know, I was in EWOW, 11 Words of Wisdom, and recently I have been eliminated. In episode 7B, I lost my final life, so I'm making this video to recap what I did and how it all ended up in me getting eliminated. So let's start with episode 0A, which was just the sign-up episode. And that's my character right there. That character showed up as my character for the rest of the show, so yeah. Don't have much to say since it's just the sign-up. And there were 16,000 contestants to begin with, so I'd say I made it pretty far. But before we get to that, let's get to episode 0B, which isn't really an episode. It was just a Q&A for people who had questions. So, let's get on to episode 1A, where it all started. So let's get on to the first prompt. The first prompt of EWOW was, what did 10 say when he was upgraded to 11? Because EWOW is the second season of TWOW, 10 Words of Wisdom. So 10 got upgraded to 11. And my response was, now I, 10, and my sister, 0, 1, look identical next to each other. And at first, this was supposed to be a silly math pun, but now I realize it just doesn't even make sense. If 0, 1 stood next to 11, and the 0 disappears, it would just be 111. This response doesn't even make sense. Gosh. Let's just get on to 1B. Now, obviously, for this horrible response, I got 9,437th and lost my first life, bumping me down to 2. So, let's get on to episode 2A. The prompt for this episode was, 6 years ago we feasted on Tide Pods. Which pods are we feasting on now? And my response was, we eat space pods. No aliens landing on our planet Earth. Now, I really like this prompt. It wasn't as witty or maybe funny as some of the others, but I definitely think it's a better improvement from my first response. So, let's see how I placed in episode 2B. For this episode, I placed 1,957th, which is pretty good since nobody had even been eliminated yet. Surprised I didn't gain a life, but I didn't place in the top 20%, so I didn't gain or lose a life. So I stayed stable at 2. So let's see what the next prompt is and my response to it in episode 3A. The prompt this time around was, our first friends will be eliminated this round. What does the EWOW afterlife look like? And my response was, they see all black because they're lodged underground. If you didn't know, in TWOW, the final 20 were on a cliff, and after they were eliminated, the rocks they were standing on broke off, and they would get lodged into the ground with all the other previously eliminated contestants. So, I know what happens when an EWOW contestant is eliminated. They get lodged in the ground. Obviously, I shouldn't have went with a logical answer. You know, it's based off of humor and creativity, and giving the actual answer isn't the best thing to do. But let's see if it backfired or not in episode 3B. This time around, I placed 3,585th. And I didn't gain or lose a life once again, cruising at 2 lives. So, let's see if that changes with the next prompt and response in episode 4A. Now, they started getting creative with the prompts. For this prompt, they said, create an acronym of a real word, but whatever the acronym stands for must be the opposite of what the acronym spells. And my response was sufficiently trekking onward perpetually, which spells out stop. And I'm really mad because I really like this one. I had to get a real brain blast in for me to figure this one out, because I just spent hours thinking and thinking, but nothing could come to mind. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally got one. And then it would be one letter off, and I was like, oh my god. So I just went with a simpler word. And let's see how I did in episode 4B. This time around, I got the placement of 1469th, which I think is another great placement. But alas, I stay at 2 lives, not gaining or losing any. But I think that's all about to change next episode. So let's dive right into episode 5A. Now, this is my worst prompt response of them all. This is not a bad prompt, but my response is just actually bad. The prompt is, you are sent back to the year 5555 BCE. Convince them you are God. And my response was, today in this video, I'm going to be recapping 5556 BCE to 2024. Oh my god. It's so bad. Excuse me. It's so bad. I'm sorry. This is before all the Mr. Beast allegations too. This was like several months ago, before he was accused of his wrongdoings. So, yes, it's a Mr. Beast reference, and I don't condone any of the alleged things he did. Let's just move on to episode 5B. God. This time for my regression in my judgment to make a good response, I got the just placement of 3034th. Losing my second life and going down to 1. So, let's see if I will live through the next prompt in episode 6A. This prompt is one I actually really like. Give a false reason for a true fact. And my response was, the moon is slowly moving away from Earth because it is an introvert. And I love this one. This might be this might be one of my favorite. I haven't really decided which of my actually good ones are my favorite, but this is definitely one of my top responses, probably top 3, maybe even top 2. So, let's go on to episode 6B. And this episode I think is my best placement of all, 1045th. And I didn't gain or lose a life once again. So let's move on to my final episode, episode 7A. So this is the longest prompt ever. In a world of sentient objects, one is running for president. Give an example of what their campaign slogan would be. And basically this was just room for a bunch of puns. This is just like a pun prompt. And mine was, as a fishing rod, I would be quite the catch. Quite fish-tastic. And, I think you can see why I lost now. I thought it was good at the time, because just like the acronym, prompt, I couldn't really think of much. A lot of these prompts had to make me think deep, and I really second-guessed a lot of my responses. So let's see if not second-guessing this one was a good idea. Wait, you already know that, so let's just move on to my final episode, episode 7B. And for my final placement, I got 1495th, which means I lost my final life, knocking me down to 0. And as I said in one of my earlier prompts, I have been lodged in the ground with the 14,000 others to fall before me. How do I know? Well, let's move on to my final placement and my general experience with the camp. Alright, my final placement was 1966th, which I'm pretty proud of. I made it to the top 2,000. That's crazy. I wasn't expecting to get this far. And despite what I just said, I really wanted to make it further. I really wanted to be one of those people animated falling off the cliff, but hey, I made it far enough. I'm proud. Thank you, Humany, aka Carrie Huang, for making an EWOW Season 2, and I had the pleasure of competing in it. Overall, I'd say my experience was good. Sure, it would jump scare me when I would wake up and there would be a new EWOW episode, and I'm like, oh god, I have to make a new response to a prompt, and then I would be stressed out until I answered it. But EWOW wasn't really stressful, because this isn't a jab at Carrie or any of the hosts who've hosted the past few episodes while Carrie was on his leave, but the episodes came out pretty slow, which I kind of like. At first, I was like eager, like, come on, man, I want to get started, I'm excited. But then I was like, you know, it's not stressful. EWOW was never stressful. I don't think there would really be a reason to quit unless there was a dramatic change going on in your life and you literally couldn't compete, like you just didn't have the time. But EWOW came out like every month or every few months. Like sometimes it would be 3 months, 2 months, because there were just so many contestants. And I liked it, you know? It was slower. It was slower paced. And, yeah, overall, camp was great. If there's ever a TWOW 2, aka 12 Words of Wisdom, I am 100% signing back up. Speaking of signing, this is Noah Animations, signing off.